Hey, this is Matt once again. Welcome back to another video. And this is a paid request for Sean. Thank you so much for that. And for those interested in requesting any type of videos, feel free to send it either directly to my PayPal or join my Patreon. Both links are down below in the info box. It could be pretty much any type of video or topic, random thoughts, tier list rankings, commentaries, whatever the case, video game playthroughs. I'll try to get to as soon as I can. Thank you. But Sean, which fits for the Halloween season, wanted me to check out a 1932 vampire movie called Vampyr, or Vampire, however you want to pronounce it, which is a film from a Danish filmmaker called Carl Dreyer. And I guess this is a guy that had made some decently popular films in the silent era. And I guess this was being made before Dracula, but for some reason they decided to release it after Dracula. But I guess when it came out, people did not really like the film. It kind of, I don't want to say it tarnished his reputation, but it didn't help. And he did some films afterward, but I don't even know how people feel about this film now. And the way I looked at the film, I found it intriguing, but it's more of a historical sense. Not really a narrative sense. But there is stuff I do appreciate it. I didn't mind it. I'm glad I saw it at least once. But it would not be everyone's cup of tea. Understandably so. And what I mean by it is, I am curious in that era of films in the 30s. And, you know, as we're coming out of silent film, we're starting to get into sound. And just how just a complete time window. Just to see how people acted, dressed, reacted to situations, what you could and definitely could not film, and how because of the black and white photography, because of the way they would shoot certain sequences, they would have a bit of a thick atmosphere at times, which is hard to have that for a film nowadays. And while I do think the narrative in this is the weakest part, it does have enough atmosphere that kept me intrigued to see what was going to happen next and what was happening. And even though this is a sound film, like, you do hear some people talk. It is in a different language, at least the one I saw. And I had to find one that has subtitles. But at the same time, a lot of times it will go to this text from this book of vampires that will kind of tell you the gist of what's going on, and then they have scenes of the actors doing their stuff, and you do hear sound, and once in a while people talk. But then at the end the movie will stop and give us a big old lowdown of text from this book, but it's also telling the audience what's going on, and I'm like, that was a bit weird. Because you didn't see a lot of that in, you know, Dracula, Frankenstein films before, like a ton of that text stuff. I'm not saying there was none, but it wasn't a ton of it like this, and that came out a year before this film. So I don't know if the director just wasn't comfortable with that and wanted to rely on the sound film tricks. But I'm sure maybe people, now that they were witnessing sound, they kind of like, you're going back to these old tricks. What are you doing, man? Why you do that for? But the story of the film, as best as I understood it, is there's a guy named Allan Gray who's in, I want to say France. He rents a room, and what one surprising thing was the way the director moved the camera a lot, which was not that common in this time period. A lot of times it's had the camera down like a play, static shots, but he was like move the camera down and follow people down a hallway, and there's POV shots at some points, pans. I kind of appreciate that. Like, it was ambitious for the time. So while he goes in for a room, at one point he sees this weird looking, like, disfigured guy, which I thought was going to be more prominent, but I don't think you ever see that guy again. He looked disfigured, like a crooked mouth and stuff. But yeah, I don't think we ever see the guy again. So while he's trying to sleep, another guy enters his room, puts his box on the table. Very weird situation. He kind of looks at him and don't let her die and all this stuff. And of course, Allan Gray's like, what the fuck's going on here? He doesn't say that, but I interpret in his mind he would say that. And he opens the box and there's a notes about, open after my death and a book of vampirism and stuff of that nature. There are points that he follows these shadows that have a life of their own, including this like peg-legged soldier. He'll see like other shadows dancing, and he's following them. He goes to the rooms where like these weird baby skeleton decorations, and I'm sitting there going, "What the fuck is going on?" Especially, what is going on? I don't know. Do you know? At one point, he sees this doctor, which to me looked like Albert Einstein. And Allan Gray's like, "Oh, I've been hearing like these dogs and these babies." He's like, "What are you talking about? There's none of that here." So he keeps following these shadows, and he sees a shadow at a window looking like he has a gun, and he looks over, and it's the guy who was in his room earlier, and he gets shot. So he goes in trying to help. He gives his dying thoughts. Now in that place there's a servant and there's two daughters. One is sick, ill, they don't know why. And the other, of course, is scared about that. And of course we kind of find out the sickness of the woman in bed is because of vampirism. Which, I mean, this is 1932, so they do things quite a bit differently. Like, the vampire is an old woman, and it seems... I don't know how to review this without spoilers, because the plot, at times, can be needlessly confusing, especially, like, some things, why was that there? And I think I know why it happened, but I would say, again, I appreciate the look of the film, that 30s atmosphere, at times very foggy locations. There's a very interesting bit where there's a POV of someone in a coffin. Like they're in a coffin, you see it rise up and going towards the grave, and all we see is the guy's point of view. Again, very different and unique for its time. And interesting to see this different take on vampirism compared to Bela Lugosi, where this old woman needs this Albert Einstein looking guy to poison this girl. How in order to kill the vampire, you put like an iron, like a metal iron thing into her, not a wooden stake. It's about how the vampire also wants to push the woman into ending her life, because then her soul will be in eternal punishment. That's why they do. They try to do a little bit of different stuff here. And there's definitely some weird stuff in this. And more spoilers. He'll have these visions, like he visions a skeleton giving someone poison, and then that stops him out. Oh, wait a minute, the girl's in trouble, and stops her from drinking the poison. There's a point that he trips and he has an out-of-body experience where he sees things that will help him later, but then he also visualizes himself going to a grave, which he did is a very interesting scene. Part of me wondered why the hell this is happening, like what was the point of this? Because long story short, like I said, you find out that the old woman's a vampire. The servant is going through the vampire book, And there are times the movie will cut to him just reading the book, and then we see the text of the book, and we as the audience read along as to what it says about vampirism and how maybe this old woman or someone like her was in a place before this, and she was the cause of this trouble and issue and death of who knows how many, and how you need to have this metal bar to kill the vampire. And again, I think what the director made the mistake of is, because we're getting to the sound era, show don't tell. And he didn't do that. Like, okay, instead of just telling us, making us read all this text, even let the characters talk about it and show pictures in the book and show pictures or paintings, and they're talking about it and they see a painting and then it goes towards this or they go through, but like that would get the audience more invested instead of just he gets the book like this and then it cuts to a book like here going up. So again, like, okay, the point of view of him in the coffin was interesting, but you find out that that out of body experience helped, because at this point they kill the vampire, the girl in bed gets better, but wannabe Albert Einstein doctor kidnapped the other daughter. Allan Gray and the servant don't know where she's at. Allan Gray trips, has his out-of-body experience, which he's able to see where that girl's at and where the key was. But then, what was the whole point of him being in the coffin and going towards the grave? Was that like a word of warning? Like, be careful, this is how you're going to turn out? Maybe, I don't know. But it was cool to see. Also, I thought it was interesting that the vampire was the first to die, and then the Albert Einstein looking doctor. There's usually be reversed. Like, you want to save the big bad guy for last, which you think would be the vampire. But no, they killed the vampire first, which is just, this is 1932. You see the old woman, then you see them kind of get this, put it there, and just do like that. Like, you're not going to see anything graphic. Apparently there's a lot of spirits and ghosts around here, because apparently when that's happened, and when Allan Gray had his out-of-body experience, wannabe Einstein is with the peg-legged soldier, which we saw his shadow kill the guy earlier in the film. They see the guy that was killed, he, like, his big ghostly face is by the window that freaks the two of them out, to the point that we hear, and it pans, we see the body of the soldier fell down the stairs and died. And apparently this guy haunted I'm going to call him Albert Einstein, to this facility where this flower, like, the doors close on their own, the machinations, the little machinery, they started on their own, and the guy, like, died from overflow of flour, whereas he's suffocating, then it gets so much and so much that he can't, he's buried in it. And I thought, okay, it was different. I had not really seen that stuff done before. While our lead has the girl to safety, and creepy, nice atmospheric, foggy area. And that's what I mean. Like, I appreciate the techniques they were doing. I appreciate how kind of creative the director was trying to employ with this story. But I do think that he should have worked on the narrative a bit better. Maybe made some things a bit more clearer. Utilized the sound more. A bit more showing and a little less of telling. And I think that could have helped. Because I don't even know who Allan Gray really is as a person. Why he's there, why he was staying in that room. Like, we know nothing about him. Other than he's this poor schmuck in the middle of all this. Because there's little dialogue they say, you don't really... It's hard for me to get a lead on performances, like how their acting was. I didn't compare to Dracula, which I would say I prefer over this, because Bela Lugosi and the way he did, and even the guy who played Van Helsing, and even the guy who played Renfield. I get more of a gauge of those performances, and I like the first Dracula. The Spanish one is better directed, it has more intriguing shots. I kind of wish there was a melding of the both, like, the way the Spanish Dracula was directed, but if you kept the cast of the American Dracula. Like, I wish there was a way to blend those. Sadly, there's not, but I don't know, with the way people could do stuff today and you have a lot of time, maybe someone can and will one day. But yeah, this was interesting to watch. I would never see it again. But like I said, these films of this timeline do intrigue me because it's such a world apart from what movies are nowadays. Again, with how they come across a story, how they approach it, how they film it, the old techniques being used. Again, I do like film. I do like the history of film, and it's cool to see the early stages of that. Whether I liked it or not, this I would say I thought it was okay. I didn't mind it for what it was, but yeah, I would say it's more interesting on a historical sense than, like, you're not going to be scared and you're not going to think, wow, what a great story. Or what fantastic characters. You're not. If you are, I'd be surprised, and you can feel free to educate me what it is about that you like, but again, it was intriguing enough that it kept me wondering what was going to happen, and I think I just appreciate how some of the way it was directed. Just I think the writing needed a bit of work, among other stuff. But with that said, thanks for watching. Take care, and we'll see you guys later. Bye bye for now.